One. Hey, everybody. John Malanka here with United Patients Group. Be informed and be well. And we have another return guest. Happy to see you, Dr. Leah Johnson, PharmD, and welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me back.
Always good to see you, and I'm excited to share this. This is we're going to talk about Ryan's Law, but I'll go in. So Leah's organization is a nonprofit organization. It's the Pharmacists Cannabis Coalition of California, also known as PCCC. And the reason why this really stands out of what Dr. Johnson's doing, as well as what this Ryan's Law is about, because it hits home. Jim, which is Jim or James? Does he go by Jim or James?
He usually says Jim to us.
Jim,
so I think Jim, yeah.
And I've had Jim on the show, and Jim is Ryan's father. And why this is near and dear to me is because Ryan also lost his battle to pancreatic cancer, like my wife, Corinne. And the story, how the story goes, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was denied access to his medicine, meaning cannabis medicine, and they kept on pumping him with opioids, drugs, painkillers, and he was kind of in a coma. And Jim said, please, can we try some cannabis? You know, this is what he's been taking. And they finally found another hospital to move him to, which allowed him to try cannabis legally in the hospital. With that, it allowed him to wake up from his opioid drug-induced stupor, and be with his family, be with his son, be with his father. And he unfortunately passed. Jim felt that he lost 2 weeks plus of his son because he was in a coma, and he doesn't want any other families for that to happen to. And so he's been hard at work, working with organizations like Dr. Leah Johnson, PCCC. We've spread the word here, United Patients Group. And so Leah asked if she'd come on and share what they're doing here in California. So other patients do have access, not only patients on hospice, but all patients. And we're in that situation. That topic came up quite a bit when Corinne's father was ill, and we said, he's been using cannabis. May we try this? And we lived in California, and we ran into both sides of that. Yes, no, let me see what the legalities are. And so have at it, and welcome back. And thanks for reaching out and say, hey, John, can I get this message out? And as always, love to spread the word. So you're on.
Definitely. This is such an important topic for us because for the Pharmacists Cannabis Coalition of California, because what happened was the law went through and we were thrilled about that. So we are actually an organization of cannabis pharmacists. So all of us, some of us are professors teaching, some in UCSD, one is teaching in University of Southern California, and we've got hospital pharmacists, long-term care, managed care, everything. But our biggest focus is that when the law came out, there was no guidelines or anything for the healthcare facilities. So many of the facilities were like, well, we're not going to do this. It's not federally legal. And so we stepped in and said, wait, these patients need this medication. I mean, I used to be a long-term care pharmacist, so I have seen those comfort packs. I've seen the patients just sedated for just laying in bed, just not even alive. I mean, they're just sedated. It's like, what's the point of even being in that state? So, and even myself, when I was in long-term care, I actually convinced a lot of doctors to get these patients off of all these, the morphine and the anti-anxieties and the pain and the sometimes they would be on antipsychotics for like, and if they had any aggressive behavior or anything, and actually switch them over to cannabis. It was Marinol because it's the only prescription one, and sadly, it's not the best cannabinoid medication, but it was useful. And I was actually able to get people off hospice. So it just shows that cannabis can be really effective. So again, when we saw that this law came out, we were really excited. We were thrilled to see that patients can get the medication they need. But when we listened to our colleagues that didn't have cannabis background or cannabis knowledge, we learned that they were, we don't know what to do. We're not very comfortable. We want to hands off, blah, blah, blah. And the law really doesn't, and the law specifically in California, what you'll find is if you look up Ryan's Law in the country, there are other states with other versions of Ryan's Law. But in California specifically, they pretty much don't have the cover of protection for the healthcare professionals. So due to this, pharmacists don't want to touch it. Doctors don't want to touch it. Nurses don't want to touch it because they're afraid of losing their license because they're in federal facilities. So just because Ryan's Law was approved in California, why, this is a federally paid for building, we can't use it. So what we actually we actually got the confirmation and information from CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and actually learned that if something is allowed in a state, Medicare and Medicaid Services will not come in and will not cause any issue to facilities. So that was one big thing that, made a lot of healthcare professionals much more secure about using this, allowing the patient to use the product. And the other thing, so there's no inhalation. That's really the biggest difference. The biggest thing on Ryan's Law is cannabis is completely fine except for inhalation. So they can do oral, they can do topical, rectal, vaginal, any of those, but they cannot do tinctures, which is more oral, but not
even tinctures. So I was thinking when you were saying oral morning, ingesting via smoking, vaporization, or even smoking. So now they're even saying oral tinctures are not available. But
no, oral tinctures are okay. I was just saying I don't consider a tincture different from oral. I consider it the same because most of them, when you put it in your mouth, it still gets swallowed. Yeah. But in general, though, it's just, so we saw that. And so the other issue was that a lot of these facilities were saying, well, how do we protect our license? This does not protect us. And it does say that the patient needs to self-administer. So what we actually worked up for the patient was there's a lot of kind of blanks. And in our organization, we actually, one of our members, his name was Bob or Robert Stein, and he was amazing. He was just the most amazing person. And he actually had glioblastoma and passed away. So he as well used cannabis for his end of life, but he was part of PCCC and he was our cannabis pharmacist and lawyer. He was a triple threat. And he actually worked to set up policies and procedures with the rest of our organization to provide to our facilities for free, just saying here are policies and procedures and documentation you can have for your facility, just so that you can feel comfortable, you can feel compliant, and you don't feel like you have the risk of losing your license. And PCCC has actually been going around to multiple states, multiple pharmacist-based organizations and other healthcare-based organizations to really promote the law and really just educate what people really need to know, and to not be afraid, because so many healthcare professionals are afraid, and so many patients don't know to ask for it because they hear they're going on hospice, they say, here's your comfort pack, done, and it's like, okay, this is my life now. And it's like, no, you have a choice. So patients need to know you have a choice. If you are in the state of California and you would like to use medical cannabis instead of a comfort pack for your hospice, you just need a medical you actually just need a basic recommendation from any medical provider in the state of California saying that you have been approved to use medical cannabis. With that rec, any facility in the state of California, whether it's a hospital inpatient or it's long-term care or assisted living and so on and so forth. Usually if you're a hospice, you're going to be a long-term care. You can use cannabis and they have the right, you have the right to have it by your bedside, usually in a locked container that they will give you. You're the patient or the caregiver, because a lot of patients don't have the ability to self-administer, has the only access to the key to open that drawer, so nobody else can touch it. And then they administer it themselves. But the whole idea is that they should be allowed to use what works for them and not to end up going on these meds that are just going to, it's almost like saying, okay, you got 6 months to live. Usually the criteria for hospice, mind you, Ryan's Law is actually palliative care, so it's actually a full year, but it's kind of like, okay, you've got a year, here's a comfort pack. And so they kind of almost take away some of your life because they put you on this thing that just sedates you fully. So with cannabis, the patient actually helps with anxiety. It actually helps with the depression of dying. It helps with pain, and it helps with any sort of agitation, and it actually gets the patient to eat more. Because like the one thing that people don't really know, and I work a lot with palliative care nurses, when a patient, it's like the patient's pretty good until they stop eating. The second the food goes, you got days. That's it.
That was the whole reason how we started United Patients Group in 2010, because Corinne's father wasn't eating. We came across a study that showed 40% of cancer patients die and pass of malnutrition before cancer takes over. And I knew nothing about the medical side of this plant. And I asked I was embarrassed because I was the boyfriend then. And friend, and I was a stupid boyfriend. I said, I don't mean to offend you. May we try cannabis for appetite? Because they were popping up everywhere. And his doctor said, I know nothing about it. Go for it. So we didn't know the medical benefits, but we knew it would help with appetite and munchies.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we did. And he hadn't been eating for about 3 weeks. And so within 24 hours, we started eating. We said, oh my gosh, it worked. And he'll pass peacefully. And it went a day, 5 days, a week, 6 months. And he just passed about a year and a half ago from old age, not of cancer. So, but that's the portion of the benefits of this plan. It's not, to me, is not going to out of the grand slam like we did with her father of saving a life. And definition of helping for me is saving a life, which I want to do with Corinne. And I'm certain Jim wanted to do with his son, Ryan. But others are extend life, as you mentioned, appetite, anxiety, depression, mood, pain, sleep. And so you go through it. So hearing you share about this and what's by the bedside has brought back a lot of memories in my memory bank of going through this with Corinne, and hearing a lot of other patients going through. I mean, in 1985, I found out I didn't find out until 2010 when I was sharing with my family what we were doing launching the site. And my mom said, did you know your grandfather in 1985 in San Francisco, his doctor said and he had colon cancer. And he said, in San Francisco, I'd like you to try marijuana is what they And my grandfather said, are you out of your mind? I've been against drugs my whole life. And you want me to do it on my deathbed? How dare you? Give me the morphine. I said, Mom, who was that doctor? She goes, I don't know. It was so long ago, but showed that doctor in San Francisco was so ahead of his time. And so hearing you talk about the lock and key about administrating caregiver or the patient, yet there's no lock and key on the morphine or the other pills that are sitting by their bed. And that's the part that I internally chuckle about.
Well, and it's the funny thing. It's like, okay, so a nurse can administer morphine to these patients, but they can't administer cannabis. Like, are you serious? Like, cannabis is so much less harmful, causes so much. I mean, the other thing that people don't realize about morphine, and I really want to mention this to your audience, especially for the patients out there, is morphine stops the pain by blocking certain receptors in your brain. However, what people don't realize is those receptors are actually in your stomach as well. So you block those receptors, so it makes your brain stop feeling pain, but it also makes your stomach stop moving, and it stops the digestion. So it causes the pain, it causes the buildup, causes the not eating. But cannabis doesn't do that. It has no effect on that. So the patient can eat, they can actually, everything functions like normal. And really, cannabis just brings them to a homeostasis. So I really hope there is actually a bill right now called SB 302, which is to extend Ryan's Law to all patients in California over the age of 65 in long-term care or inpatient facilities with obviously ailments. They still need a recommendation or a card just to document that they do have an ailment that cannabis is helpful for. And this extension will be really great for a lot of patients to get what they need without being on drugs and on especially harmful drugs. But what we're hoping changes in that new law is that healthcare professionals in the state of California, specifically nurses who are administering meds, can give the patient the med. So that, because, family is not always there. You can't be there 24/7. So if you've got mom in the hospital and she's or not in the hospital, but in long-term care, and she's in pain, you can't keep running back in the middle of the night to give her cannabis, where there is a very competent, very intelligent nurse right there that can give her exactly what she needs. And the only thing that nurse needs is just the protection of her license. And that doesn't seem like too much to ask for.
But it is fearful, because I work with a lot of nurses and doctors, not only here in California, but throughout the states, that have been given written warning, more so with nurses, have been given written warnings. And even when we apply for CME courses, and some of these nurses have been told, no, you cannot teach these courses or we will take your license away. And so thank you for that. Ryan's Law used to be SB 311, and now it's the California State Senate Bill 988, and then you're changing it to 302. Did I hear you? I'm bouncing around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here.
So 311 was where it started. And then the number you mentioned was like the current one. But it was really just to kind of clarify 311, where this is actually an expansion of the bill, which we're really excited about because it really takes it to another step. But a lot of organizations, I can't even tell you how many organizations came out to talk about this new SB 302, again, the expansion of Ryan's law. It was the Society of Cannabis Clinicians came in to support it. Our organization, the California Society of Health Systems Pharmacists, just all these giant organizations really came in to say, we support this, but we want a couple amendments to protect healthcare professionals, because that's our biggest thing is I don't want healthcare professionals to ever be afraid of helping a patient. And that's kind of where the law is now, is they're not supported to help these patients because they're not supposed to be involved, but we want to get them involved. We want to be allow them to give the patient the meds they need.
So again, the Compassionate Access to Medical Cannabis Act is what this is about. It's requiring specific healthcare facilities to allow terminally ill patients the use of medical cannabis within the healthcare facility, as well as at home under guidance with hospice as well. So they feel confident that they're able to administer this type of medicine to their patients. And for you family members, as well as patients, asking a question is not illegal. And so I don't want you to be afraid to ask. And I get that quite a bit. John, I didn't want to ask my doctor. I didn't want to ask my nurse. One, because of stigma and embarrassment, but two, I don't want to get in trouble or be considered a drug addict. I hate that word, but you have a lot of fear. And so please know, it doesn't matter if you're in a legal state or illegal state here in California or not, you can still ask the question. And if your doctor is not familiar, contact myself, contact Leah. But also, if your doctor's not familiar with cannabis, ask them if they can recommend another doctor. Nowadays, 2023, I guarantee they know 10, 12, 50 people in their Rolodex that are up maybe on the laws in their state, but also know about the endocannabinoid system and the benefit that this plant has to offer. And so I know you're in the middle of work, and I wanted to honor your time because you have to go back to work. But is there anything that I'm missing out that I wanted to? I don't want to walk away and go.
Of course, yeah. For all information, actually, so it's really great to if you have more questions about Ryan's Law or specifically the Pharmacists Cannabis Coalition of California, you can go to www.pccrx.org. And it will have all that information. We actually have webinars we put up. We have CEs we put up. We have a lot of data, a lot of info. And our biggest focus is really, we're a nonprofit organization for a reason. Our goal is just to get that education out. And actually, exactly what John said, if you have a provider that's not, and I'm going to take it a step farther, not just doesn't know about cannabis, but is anti-cannabis, find a new provider. I say this to all patients looking for it. The worst thing you can do is lie to your physician about what you are taking, because that causes issues with other potential things they might prescribe. You want a doctor, even if they don't know too much about it, but they're willing to talk to you about it. That's what you want to do.
This is something I share with everybody too. Cannabis, because it works for you or your loved one or your aunt or your uncle or your friend, and they are the same age as you or your loved one or your friend. Cannabis is not a one-size-fits-all type of medicine. Age, weight, current health conditions, sensitivities. But as Leah was talking about, drug-to-drug interactions are very important. That's why it's very important to have this discussion with your doctor, saying, this is what I'm considering using. Are there any drug-to-drug interactions? Because there are drug-to-drug interactions with any drugs, not only with cannabis, but with alcohol and combining. Is this something on your website, www.pccrx.org, that you share about drug-to-drug interactions?
Yes, I believe we're just finalizing the document actually to put up. But we do have that because, there's, if you have to be very careful when looking at general, like if you go to drugs.com or rx.com, it literally says cannabis interacts with everything. And that is not true at all. I mean, any medication that goes on the CYP receptors, which is most medications, will interact. So the biggest thing you want to look for is the specific medications that interact, and that will be on the website, as well as just a lot of more information about usage. We have a lot of FAQs that a lot of people like, facts and questions that people have. So really, we're happy. And if there's anything you don't see, our email is right there. Reach out to us, ask us questions. You literally will have 6 pharmacists and all of our members at your disposal to answer your questions at the best of our ability, and to we can provide you research, we can provide you studies. So providers out there that don't know about cannabis but want to learn about cannabis, come to our website, ask us. We can, if you say, please provide me studies on pancreatic cancer, I can do that. Our organization can do that, and we are happy to do that. We want the education out because we want people off of these meds that are unnecessary, when a much safer and more reputable medication can be effective for these patients, especially in their time of need at the end of their life.
And well said. We don't want anybody to suffer. We don't want to lose our loved ones either, but we don't want them suffering at this time of their life as well, not only for the patient, but also the family members watching their loved ones going through what they're going through. And so, but Dr. Leah Johnson with the Pharmacists Cannabis Coalition of California, PCCC, I thank you. Always great to see you. And I appreciate you reaching out. Say, hey, John, can we get this information? And happy to do anything with you. So
thank you so much for sharing. It means a lot to my organization. It really does. They were thrilled to hear that you thumbs up us coming to talk about it.
And so everyone, you know how to get a hold of me, John at United Patients Group. You can find Dr. Leah Johnson, as we mentioned, on her website. And wishing you all a wonderful, blessed day, and we will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.